So to everyone here on our panel, and especially to the maybe future game designers who've joined us today, in whichever part of the world you are in, I would like to say welcome to this hour-long introducing the metaverse. So, and to fundamentals everyone here on our panel, sandbox, and especially and the sandbox game dev. So today our lineup, we're going to have me, who is now giving you a welcome. I'm David O'Connor. I'm a trainer with Polygon Games. Following this quick introduction, we're going to have Juan from the Sandbox. He's going to talk for about 10 minutes, a presentation, and tell us a bit more about the world of the Sandbox. After that, he'll answer any questions that you may have. So in your text box on YouTube, you can type in any questions, and Juan will do his best to give you some useful and helpful answers. Following Juan's Q&A session, we'll give the floor to Kartoa, who's the lead game analyst at MetaGuild. Some of you may know him. And Kartoa will talk about the metaverse, blockchain, and crypto. And he'll talk about how this connects with the sandbox. So this kind of bigger world of which Sandbox is a part of. Again, we'll have another Kartoa will have a Q&A session after his presentation, and you can type your questions into YouTube for him, and he can answer them hopefully as best he can. Then I'll jump into the hot seat and we'll talk about game development, the art and technology of game development. We'll talk for about 25 minutes or so on game designers and some of the key skills that's involved in building a game. So at this stage, I'm going to pass the floor to Juan. I'm going to close my presentation here, and Juan will bring his slides up. So Juan, passing the baton over to you.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Let me know when I can share. I think I can do it now. Let's see. Can you all see my presentation? All good? Well, hello, everyone. Very nice to be here speaking about this topic and about the company that I represent. I'm very thankful for this opportunity, of course. And yeah, let's jump into this. So very briefly, I know, I'm sure that most of you know what the Sandbox is. But very briefly, in just a few minutes, we'll go through a quickly presentation just to be on theme, and then we can jump on what's the GML. So the Sandbox, as you may know, is a decentralized universe that counts with 166,464 virtual lands on the blockchain, created for and with the community where your NFTs come to life. A social platform where you can live different kinds of experiences driven by creators, players, and landowners who are connected and rewarded through the circular economy and play to earn. Each user can own a parcel of the universe through lands, sand, experience tokens, assets, and cats and gems. Our Sandbox Metaverse is really much more than a gaming platform. It's a super real extension of the real world. Our tokens are expression of the different cultures that we see in real life across the world. It can be from fashion. For example, right now we are doing one event to represent 60 years of fashion advance in the United States. It can also be to represent the music industry, as we have done several events for Steve Aoki, Paris Hilton, and much more. It can be to represent different subcultures of different cultures. For example, our Turkish bears. to represent the Turkish culture, our carnival that's coming this February, or it could also be our Lunar New Year to represent our Chinese culture. To bring your ideas to life, we have 3 different motors that you will learn to use, I assume, through this webinar. It is box edit, our game maker, and our user interface, which is the marketplace, where you can buy and sell assets and avatars that also include our premium IPs that I named before, for example, Paris Hilton and Steve Aoki. You know, the base of all of this and the base of the sandbox, what we truly believe in is user-generated content. We do not believe in generating ourselves the content for users forever. We rely on all of you to create it. So that's why we expect to receive more and more participants on webinars like this, and we plan on keep supporting them. Just so our marketplace is filled with inventions of different users from different cultures, from different places of around the world, and you use our motors to create your craziest ideas in our platform. So now, as per what's the GMF, which is the very, very, very interesting part of my speech, if I could resume in a few words before doing my whole presentation, what's the GMF? It would be a way to make your development happen inside of the sandbox, even though when you don't have all the support that you need to do it, which usually is financial support. So here's our amazing team. I don't know if I'm blocking the view with my Zoom thing. I think that I fixed it. But this is our amazing team. You can see me here in the brown jacket. Yes, we are the persons that run the Game Maker Fund. So as per some key performance indicators, this year we have received a total of 177 applications. We have onboarded a total of 136 studios. We have dedicated a budget of $11.3 million to different productions. We have applied to the different seasons 25 different experiences, which I assume some of you might have played. I will show you after this slide some of the ones that we collaborated with. So just so you can see what you can create, or you can relate at least those who have played our different seasons, you can relate the content that you saw on the season to the Game Maker Fund. I can show you some of the different experiences that we have worked with. So we work from hyper casual or hybrid casual games to FPS, to racing, to party games, to tower defense, to survival. For example, maybe you saw A Love Is Forever. That was a huge hit on our last seasons. Shadows of the High Seas, for example, as well. Deja Vu, which is a super, super good and particular example. You know, Deja Vu was developed by a very small studio from Argentina, 2 brothers that work in very, very, very different areas than Web3, you know. One of them worked in the oil industry, and the other one was a graphic designer. And they applied to the GMF with this crazy idea to create a thriller story, very cinematic, inside of the sandbox. And we approved it. We never thought it was going to be as good as it was and as loved by the users as it was. And actually, I think this happened a year ago when they applied. And now they are going to be one of our biggest representatives in Argentina. So just so you can see what you can do through the GMF, from a small application we can make you a really, really, really big studio if you develop good content for us. Another super cool experience is FunRun. They're also a small studio that applied to the GMF with this super fun experience, and now they're working on it for our next seasons. Escape Velocity as well, Unit of Life for education. It's not only about games, our mission and vision, but it's also about educating the users of the sandbox. Unit of Life was proposed by a biologist that wanted to include in gaming a way to understand what happens inside of a human cell. So he gamified this concept, and it's now coming to life, hopefully in our next season as well. So you can not only play, but you can also learn, which is amazing. As per diversity, last Pride, we had People of Crypto, The Value of Belonging, which was made in partnership with one of our biggest studios, Hermitcraft, based in Brazil. And we also support causes that represent different areas of the community, which, for example, would be the diversity. So we would love you all to apply. Here is a presentation of our teammates. We are a few managers that manage all the content. And also we have some asset reviewers and level designers to guide you through the process of your application. So before you apply, there are some things that you need to know. The Game Makers Fund pays only in stand, so you would have to have a wallet. There are some criteria to apply to the GMF. I will read some most asked questions. Sometimes this is the questions that we receive a lot. So before going to the Q&A, I will read this very briefly. So who can apply? It's anyone with the availability to create a GDD, a game design document. So what we aim to is for you to be able to put down in paper, well, in a Word document, your ideas. So you would have to show us your capacity to create a narrative, game flow, what mechanics you would use, also a budget, an adequate budget, and just to show us that you respect our values and the guidelines that we have. You should be able to develop an experience or find a development team to do so. We have already some partner studios that can work with great ideas. So for example, if you think that you have a great idea, but you cannot bring it to life because you don't have the time, the resources, or because you don't have the knowledge, we can also partner you with a studio to do so. You should also be able to sustain daily or weekly communication to the sandbox representatives in order to follow production guidelines. What we mean with this is that you would be the sole owner of the experience, so we would need you to communicate with us constantly in order to follow our production guidelines. What can the GMF fund? So we can fund up to 100% of development costs and up to 100% of marketing costs. What do I mean with up to 100? So it depends on the experience and on the team. How much do we decide to fund? For example, sometimes we fund only 50% of development and 100% of marketing, or the other way around also. When can you apply? So you can apply whenever you want. We are always reviewing our applications. We are constantly talking with the users that apply. So whenever you feel like it, you can apply through our website. Can I apply if I'm a solo creator? Yes, definitely. And also we can partner you with other creators to come to make your vision come to life. So what do I look into whilst reviewing an application? So whenever I receive an application, what is the most important to me to see is originality, to see what you have built before. Just, if you could show me some assets, some of the level design that you have done in the past, so we can validate that you have the knowledge to do so. Just a pitch deck, a GDD, as I said before, and budget adequacy. So please do not send any application that cost $1 million. We have received a lot. That will never happen. Please be adequate with your budget. We also check for doability in regard of your tools. That means that you can also do it with the knowledge that you have, and profitability potential in regards of your NFT strategy and tokenomics in general. So with that, we mean that you have a plan for the NFTs that you produce. For example, it could be wearables that you can put up for sale. And last but not least, values adequacy. We believe in creating a good value ecosystem. So we value good people, we value communicative people, we value those who really want to make a difference, and those who really want to make the world a better place. So yes, this is very important. We want Web3 environment to be as healthy as possible. So that's very valued by our team. So here you can see a picture of some studios that started very, very small and now are huge. For example, Smuggler, they are started from the very beginning of the sandbox. Now they are huge. They travel around the world in different events. They do talks. They represent us so well all through Asia. We also have the people from Australia, our representatives. Pete Castles is one of our brightest minds inside of the sandbox that represents us so well in Australia. We have more than 230 studios and 30,000 creators, which is a huge number. And we would love to see all of those people that are in this webinar being a part of this number. So yeah, we are hoping to see all of you applying to the GMF whenever you have a good idea, or whenever you want just to show what you can do. So yes, now maybe we can jump to the Q&A. Sure. Okay. Let me go to YouTube to see if there are any questions. Where should I start? So, Rocky's Miguel, how do I know how much to apply? I don't understand that question. Maybe the next one is more understandable for me. How to know which is the right budget? Oh, okay. So we have some guidelines, right? But what we want to receive really is your estimate of how much you think it costs to do that. For example, if you know that the development will take you 4 months working 8 hours every day, we expect to receive in the budget how much your 8 hours per day cost. So if you know that in order to sustain your lifestyle and your life, working a full-time job for a month cost, I don't know, like $100 per day. I'm just saying round numbers so you can get it. we expect to receive this. We are very flexible. If you live in Finland and living costs are super high, we value and respect that. And if you live in a place that's cheaper, we also believe in your honesty to tell us how much it really costs to sustain these developments. As I said before, values are really important for us. So we believe in our creators. We believe in their values. So we believe that the budget that you will send to us will be adequate. Do you have examples of GTDs templates? Yes, we do have examples. If you go to our webpage, that's sandbox, I think that is sandbox.game/game makers fund, or you can type in Google the sandbox game makers fund. You will see a form, and in that form there's a template that I produced myself. So yeah, you can find it there. How much can I potentially make? Make in what sense? So we fund development. We do not fund people making profit. We fund your ideas, but the profit should come from the game itself and not from the fund. What consider small team? People in team, I need what roles you're expecting in team. Okay, so a small team for us would be 1 to 3 people. That's a small team. From 3 to 6, it's a medium team. And from 6 to 10 would be a big one. And from 10 to many more would be a studio. Is it necessary to submit previews of the game in question to present to the GMF? It's not necessary, but it will definitely help your application. If you cannot, and if you don't have previews of your game, you can put some sketches. They don't need to be inside of a sandbox. They can be just drawings. Can I monetize the game? If so, should I share profit with the GMF? We expect you to monetize the game, and no, you should not share profit with the GMF. That's not what we aim to. We aim to fund development in order to have content. That's our real reason. We do not want any profit from the games that you develop. Can a GTD contain concept art next to avatar of experience images? Yeah, as much information as you can add. That's lovely. It will really help your application. What if something is wrong with the application? We do several rounds of reviews. So if we have questions or we want you to fix something, we will let you know. Whenever we receive an application, it's not rejected or approved from the very beginning. We do rounds of review in order for you to get a substantial game design document for us to approve the budget. So don't worry, send what you have, and if we need more, we will let you know. So oh no, so you don't take equity or own any app? No, Michael, we don't. The only thing, for example, is that if you do an NFT drop through the GMF, 95% of the profits go to the creator and 5% goes to the GMF in order to cover the managing costs. So for example, doing an NFT drop, it costs money. So that 5%, which is a very small number, is just to managing those costs that the sandbox has. Is the GMF application only for one idea game, or if I have more ideas, can I reapply to continue making another game? Yes, you can do several applications Please, one application per game. And if you have more, do several applications. For a cinematic narrative game, it's sometimes better to set the player's avatar to a dog that can't attack or something. But do blockchain gamers prefer to use their own customized avatars in games? Wow, that's a long question. So I don't think I understand. I will try to answer it as far as I understand the question. So you're asking if you can do different avatars through the GMF? Not really. Avatars at the moment are selected for a few experiences that the managers, for example, me, consider that would sell well. I think this is it with the questions. If you have more, please, you can contact me through my LinkedIn, or you can just send me a message through here, through the chat. I will answer them as soon as possible. So going back to David.
Juan, beautiful. Thank you so much. There's a lot of useful information to digest there for sure. And I'm going to bounce this straight over to Cartoa, who's probably lining up his presentation right now. So Cartoa, whenever you're ready, I'm going to turn off my mic and turn over the floor to you.
Yes, hello everyone. Do you see my presentation? Do you hear me? Great. So welcome everyone. I will be guiding you guys from the first part of our learning course is Introduction to the Metaverse and the Fundamentals of the Sandbox Game Development. So Juan already said lots of things about the sandbox, about the Game Maker Fund, and sometimes I will repeat what he said, but you can consider it as a way to maybe understand more and learn more about this space if you're not familiar with it. And basically, this will be my goal. Let me a little bit introduce myself first. So I used to be a Hearthstone esports player for 4 years. I really love and I'm very passionate about games. And I also used to work in a AAA studio, a position of QA engineer. And currently I am working in a gaming guild on a position of lead game analyst at Meta Guild. I will talk about it a little bit later. But so far I am very, we call them crypto native. I am very well aligned with the values and structures and everything that Web3 space trying to bring you. And I will try to explain to you starting from the term metaverse. So, and additionally, guys, if you have any questions regarding things I will be talking in my part, so you can write them in the chat. I will answer them after the speech, so feel free to do it, and we will have the similar make questions in the end. So let me define what is metaverse. There is no like one definition to it. So we use selected definitions from thought leaders, from people who basically have value in the space. And I prefer the one from the Roblox. It's a persistent shared 3D virtual spaces in a virtual universe. And maybe it's hard to understand with words. So I would like to show you the first part is previous Facebook's now Meta version of Metaverse. So you can see that there has been like lots of criticism towards Meta, but right now it's still like the biggest attempt to create the metaverse. And you can see on the video that Mark is entering this virtual world where he like hanging out with friends, playing card games. They can look whatever they want. They can have the digital avatar. So this is basically very easy understanding what is metaverse term is and like what are people trying to do here. And Sandbox is very similar, doing very similar things, basically the same, but in a gaming world. So let's say Meta's version, they are focused on creating virtual spaces, virtual homes, attending concerts. Concerts, by the way, is very popular thing in Sandbox. You can attend this beautiful, like Snoop Dogg makes concerts in Sandbox. And also you can travel to distant like cities, wonders. You can design them by yourself. And also shopping is very big, I think. And moving forward, it's very important to understand what is blockchain. If you're familiar with it, it's good. If you're not, I will just briefly introduce it. I will not go in depth. It's not like important and required in this part, but I think as a game designer, you will like, it's vital to understand these concepts since you will be designing basically this game economy. So as Juan said, you will need to monetize your experience. So you will need to understand like what is blockchain, how this Web3 works. We call it Web3 crypto, different names. So yeah, I will start. What is blockchain? Blockchain is a system of recording information in a way that makes it difficult or impossible to change, hack, or cheat the system. If you are familiar with the term database, basically it's very big, decentralized database, and with main goal of removing middlemen by using cryptography and code. So by middlemen, I mean this third party, and it's easy to understand by just simply using Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was created in 2008 by Satoshi Nakamoto, and his name, its main purpose is digital currency. So let's say if I want to make a money transfer, instead of using a bank as a third party, that transfer my money from one country to another, I can use Bitcoin, which is basically this code on a blockchain, which is a blockchain, and it's peer-to-peer directly. So it's only you and me, and I send it to you. It's safe. It's very popular right now. So that means basically you're making things easier with a blockchain. Moving on, I will talk about Ethereum, which is called a second generation blockchain. It's also very important to understand Ethereum because Ethereum and similar blockchains you will use mostly in your work. So Ethereum is programmable. So you can also build and deploy decentralized applications on its network. These applications called smart contracts. And while Bitcoin is only a payment network, Ethereum is more like a marketplace of financial services, games, social networks, and other apps that respect your privacy and cannot censor you. So basically, you can use Ethereum to write a code on a blockchain, deploy it here, and it will work here forever. So, and other people can use it. It's a very powerful tool, and it's important to understand this concepts at least on a base level. And since 2008, where only investors could participate, right now Ethereum is available for everyone, for gamers like you and me, for writers, musicians, artists. So yeah, it is very big project. It's also important to understand the differences and just the general knowledge of other blockchains. So when we are talking about other blockchains, the main criteria, like why we should care about this blockchain, is basically activity, like how many players are using it, how many daily active users, and these ones that I present to you, they're most popular and common, of course, after Ethereum and Bitcoin. So it's Solana, Binance Smart Chain, Polygon, and Ethereum Layers 2. So Ethereum Layers 2 are Arbitrum and Optimism. They basically are made to expand the Ethereum blockchain to make transactions faster and cheaper. And it's also important to understand the differences in terms of decentralization. So let's just make take, for example, Binance Smart Chain. It is very active blockchain. It is 40% of Web3 games, of crypto games, they use it. So it's very, very well adopted in the space. But at the same time, it's almost fully centralized by Binance. So they can, for example, stop it at any time. And if you want to stop Bitcoin, Ethereum, at this point, it's almost impossible. So if you take, for example, Solana, it is very fast blockchain. Like you want your blockchain to be fast. Like if you're making a game, you want transactions to be fast, right? You don't want to, like, after finishing quest, like wait 10 seconds. You want it to be done like almost immediately. So the speed of transactions, the speed of like how blockchain works is very important. And usually it comes to the cost of decentralization. So in Solana, basically to run it, you need very like high technical requirements for your hardware. And it is, in this case, less decentralized as other blockchains, but it's very fast. And Polygon is the last one I want to mention. Is quite active, and it's ETH compatible. So it's EVM, sorry, it's EVM compatible. It's a little mistake from my side, but basically it is, let's say, very, very similar logic underneath than as on Ethereum. Second, very important topic to understand are tokens. So tokens, there are two, the most popular formats are ERC20 and ERC721. So, but before we understand this, we need to understand what is fungibility. So fungibility is like if asset is fungible, that means it's exchangeable. So if I have $10, you have $10, we can exchange it one another, and we basically, like, you can use them. There is no difference. And it's this started is ERC20. So let's say one Ether is ERC. It's not ERC20 token, but yeah, it's like basically any currency is fungible. So it's ERC20. And if we are talking about non-fungible tokens, we call them NFTs. NFTs are tokens that we can use to represent ownership of unique assets. So they let us tokenize things like art, collectibles, and even real estate. The Ethereum blockchain secures ownership of an asset. No one other than you can modify the record of ownership or copy paste a new NFT into existence. So it is like kind of very good application in terms of if you're making something unique, like things like art or even gaming assets, because they have this unique identifier. And let's take a closer look, like what's token look like from inside. And I took, for example, a spaceship from the Sandbox marketplace. So let's just take a small look at it. So we can see that this asset, 10 was minted, so only 10 of them is in existence. 7 are listed on the marketplace, and it has like 4 owners. So like probably 1 or 2 people own like more than one. So like, let's say 5. And we can basically check who owns how many, and we can check their addresses. We can check the addresses of creator of this asset. We can check addresses of owners and how many they earn. There is also a price for an asset and history of transactions. So it's very important thing. Once you create something, the history of creator, of like who is creator and what sales were, it is all stored on blockchain. So you can always see this history and understand like it's open and transparent in this way. So let's move on. And these assets you can find on marketplaces. So OpenSea is the largest, first and largest peer-to-peer marketplace. It is very big. It has more than 30 billions in volume. Whenever people trade these assets, they generate this volume, and more than 2 million of traders. So basically, you can find many different kind of NFTs assets on OpenSea. And additionally, I would like to talk a little bit about creator royalties. So creator royalties are fees that are associated with the sale of NFTs, typically set between 5% and 10% of the sale price, paid by the seller to the creators of a given NFT project. So that means that you can create something, you can create this token, put it on a blockchain, let's say sell it one time, and if it brings value to people, if it's important for people, if people like put let's say put value into it, and it worth something, we can generate this revenue from the next sales. So this is, let's say, a very interesting way to approach, like monetize your things you create, your creations. And let's talk a little bit about competitors. It's also good to know like different alternatives for marketplaces. So let's say in LuxRare, it's not quite popular, but it's more decentralized, and it has lesser fee. So you can buy like, let's say, cheaper assets than on OpenSea. There is Magic Eden, which is a Solana native marketplace. So usually when like there is some kind of native marketplace on a blockchain, and in terms of Solana it is. There is also, of course, native marketplace for sandbox, where you can buy anything for sand currency, anything sandbox related. And there is like recently was a Blur. It is for experienced traders, for people who are very experienced and need like additional functional in the marketplaces. Moving on back to metaverses. So, and now I would like to connect, to understand or to explain what is the connection between blockchain and metaverse. And the easiest way to explain it by using OnCyber metaverse. So, OnCyber is the easiest way for everyone, for anyone, no matter of experience or capital, to display visualized content in immersive experiences. So let's say it is a way where you can basically put assets on the blockchain. Like say you own some avatar, and you can go there and you can import it here and use it, and everyone is allowed to do this. So let's say it's a good place for museums, and it's a good things for basically like hanging out with friends. And now we finally arrived to the gaming metaverses, and Sandbox is biggest game in metaverse. Of course, I will repeat something that Juan said right now, but I think they're very important. It was like Sandbox was launched in 2019. You already saw some like examples, and you will see later the examples of in-game gameplay. It is very popular metaverse, gaming metaverse. It has more than 1 million players on the peak, and I will show you some stats later. Juan already mentioned ecosystem. So like in Box Edit, you can create assets. In Game Maker, you can create your own games using these assets. And if you can't create them, you can always buy them on the marketplace. Also, there is, I want to mention Sand token. So Sand is a utility token used throughout the Sandbox ecosystem as a basis for transactions and interactions. It is an ERC20 utility token built on the Ethereum blockchain. And yeah, I would like to share you, like recently there was season 3 finished in Sandbox, and it is very popular. Like they had 17 million visits, more than 360K players, many quests distributed. Basically, like you see everything on your screen. And yeah, once again, it's the biggest one. I would like also talk a little bit about the Sandbox NFTs. What kind of NFTs Sandbox has? So it has collections. Basically, collection is a set of NFTs with like similar idea. Like mostly they look similar, or like collect some general things in them. Avatars, you can see one avatar right now on my screen. Entity, basically it could be anything like a car, like a tree. Equipment is something that character wears. Art is some things you find in nature, some maybe pictures, and land. Juan also mentioned a little bit about it, and I will talk a little. So you can create your own assets, or you can buy existing one on the marketplace. And this sandbox map that Juan mentioned, it's very big. And basically, it's a place where you can buy this land, you can create your own game on it. So if you're owner, there are also different options. You can, if you're a game developer, you can go to directly to the owner and present, like kind of agree on them to make something together. So it's not like you have to own them, but yeah, if you want to make a game in Sandbox, you have to do it on some land, so on someone else's property. And it's very good production placement, and basically it's a good way to basically like buy sell them and be able to create your, like it's a way for Sandbox to monetize and to be able to create this metaverse. And the last thing I want to talk about is a creator economy. So it is very important to understand this concept because it comes from these innovative thoughts people are trying to introduce. So of course it's all connected, but as were mentioned before, people want like Sandbox team, they want you to make assets, they want you to make games because it has value. So people are creating what they love, other people experience it, and basically this is a very big opportunity to grow this ecosystem. Creators, they create things, they receive royalties that I mentioned before. You saw opportunities like game makers funds, so they're sponsoring your game. And they're rewarding very much your what you did. So over the last season, over 800,000 cent, which is equivalent of $400,000, have been distributed to creators who launch their NFT collections alongside their experiences in the Alpha Season 3. So that means it is also a job. So if you are interested in creating such experiences, if you are a person who like to do something innovative, something new, and if you are a fan of gaming like me, join our course, and you will be able to do it quite soon. And the last thing I want to mention is MetaGuild. MetaGuild is a gaming guild. We are working with gamers. We are working with Web3 games. So if you're interested to be a part of like big community, have all the fresh news, like just know every games that are in the space, and participate, join us additionally. And yeah, I think I'm ready to check some questions from you guys. Yeah, sorry, I will stop my screen. Okay, Rarible. Yes. Okay, I forgot the Rarible. It is also a marketplace. Okay, seems like guys, you don't have any questions to me, at least. It's good to know. So I can pass my word to David, and he'll get to the game design part.
Kartoha, thank you so much. You put a lot of information coming from a lot of different directions, and all of it has value as it all packs together in terms of the metaverse, crypto, the blockchain, NFTs, all of that is so useful. And it's great to have a very wide background of where it's all coming from. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to share my screen now with you. And we're going to go on to the next part of this. And just let me set this up for you, if you'll give me a moment. It just needs something a little bit special because I'm going to be playing video for you. There, okay, got it. So following on from Juan and Cartoja, they spoke about the sandbox, they spoke about the metaverse, they talked about crypto and blockchain. And the next piece of the puzzle is game development and how that works in not just crypto, not just sandbox, but also in the standard games that you buy on Steam, Humble Bundle, the Epic Games Store, Good Old Games, and all the various places you can buy, even in your local store. So I'm going to talk about game development and the art from two areas. I'm going to talk of it as an artist. So when you become a game developer, you become an artist, and game development is an art, and you'll see a little bit of that. Then I'm going to move on to the technical skills of putting a game together. And for this, I'll be applying the Sandbox Game Maker. So I'll be using Game Maker to showing you how to use Game Maker at a very simple level. And to introduce myself, I'm David O'Connor. I'm working with Polygon Games, and I've been a game developer for 10 years. And I worked as a manager on Ghost of a Tale that some of you may have played. It's this character here. It's like an indie third-person adventure game, very cute and quite successful. I've also run training at a couple of organizations like KPMG and Lincoln College. And my background is as a project manager with big companies, this kind of thing. So let's move on to talking about the art of game development, the kind of skills that a game developer has and that will make you successful and make your players happy. The game designer is kind of like the director of a movie. They're the one who pulls it all together. They can build upon the game concept, define the goals, the experience, the limits of the player, decide the story, and brief the team in putting it into reality. What's quite different about a game designer is that the different kind of roles that it has can depend very much on the exact kind of team you have. So looking at this example here, which is GTA 5, that many of you will recognize, there for several years, literally more than 1,000 game developers worked on this game together. So 1,000 people. And the game designer is the one who's responsible for bringing the experience into something the players will enjoy. It's a very specialized kind of role. And again, like a movie director, they kind of coordinate the contributions of the level designers, of the artists, of the musicians, the actors who are playing the characters, the writers, etc. And also in game development, we have the opposite. We have something like Minecraft, which is for the first 2 years, Notch built this game entirely by himself. And it's one person building an experience. And they do everything from imagining the concept, the story, the technical, the programming, the graphics, everything. So game designer can be, the role of a game designer can be from one extreme to another, leading a huge team or doing everything yourself. And the core of the game designer's thinking is what are the kinds of feelings we want our players to have as they play our game, as they play our experience. What are the kind of limits we want to place on them that force them to make interesting choices between doing A or B, doing interesting and exciting actions? So think of a game like Portal, which is a puzzle game. Maybe we want our player to feel surprised, to feel at the start maybe a little bit stupid as they try to figure out the puzzle, but then we want them to feel clever as they put the pieces together to build the puzzle and solve it. And at the end, they feel clever. With a game like Super Mario, we have a feeling of silliness. We have a world full of fun. We want our player to feel happy, feel joy, maybe play in a group with something like Super Mario Kart with friends. So it's a good time. It's a bright, colorful, cheerful experience. We can start with a feeling like, for example, Resident Evil, where we want our players to feel scared. And we can build our game towards this experience step by step. We can start with something like our players can only move slowly with weak weapons and very little ammo. So these are some core game mechanics of typical horror games, which gives the player the feeling of being less powerful. In level design, there are lots of dark corners and fog, and with music that is scary or silent, and enemy AI that can leap out at any time from the ceiling, from a window, from a door, from the fog. So we play all of these notes together in mechanics, in level design, music, AI, to give the feeling and experience of a horror like Resident Evil. And just the same way, we can build to a feeling of clever in Portal, or we can build to a feeling of fun in Super Mario, depending on the blocks that we choose and how we arrange them. Two games that approach this in two quite different angles are BioShock and Superhot. BioShock is kind of like a tragedy set in an underwater city, all about feelings of loss and sadness. It's a dark space, a little bit of horror, and it's quite creepy in many ways. And this affects, many techniques are used to affect the feelings of the player and echo the story of the game. But looking at the opposite example, you have a game like Superhot with very little story, with very little music. The graphics are absolutely minimum. And the focus is on the actual mechanics of the game, which is like an FPS where time stands still unless you move your player. So Superhot is laser focused on forcing the player to plan before they make a move and be clever about using every movement accurately. And they're both very, very successful games, but they approach the player's experience from two completely different angles. One is emotion, feelings. The other is action, more mechanics, and not so much about the visuals. Games are a collection of systems. If we look at one of the classic, perhaps one of the biggest and most famous games of all time, back in the day, Pac-Man, had one major system, which was movement. You move your little dot around the maze, and the ghosts chase you, and in turn, you try to eat them, and they try to eat you. So it's one very simple system. Looking at the opposite, again, a perfect example of this is Grand Theft Auto 5, which has many, many different systems. You have systems for walking around, for shooting, for inventory, for driving, and so on. And some of these systems are at the heart of the Grand Theft Auto experience. So driving, walking around, shooting, carrying inventory are core systems to the GTA game. But GTA goes farther than this, so they add extra systems like sightseeing, hunting, parachuting, and that are subsystems of the game and that add extra value to the player and add extra value to the GTA experience. So you can have a game which is basically almost one system like Pac-Man, or you can have a game that has many main systems and also many subsystems as well. As many of you will experience, the heart of a great game is balance. And it's kind of like the Goldilocks effect, where the game designer tries to keep things not too hot, not too cold, nicely and rightly in the middle. And there's a very famous diagram for this. This is called the flow diagram, where the game designer tries to keep the player in a state of interesting excitement right down the middle, up the middle of this flow channel here. Players start their game with low skill, and we keep it easy for them. As the player plays our game longer and longer, their skills get better, but we have to give them more and more of a challenge to keep them interesting. If we make it too hard for them, we go into the anxiety zone. It's stressful. They'll go play another game or do something else. But if it's too easy for them, they can get bored. So we want to keep it right in the sweet spot for the player, the Goldilocks zone of flow between too hard and too easy. And this is true for the player's experience almost with everything. So we can apply it also to the weapons in the game, which can be balanced with each other, with some weapons that are good for certain situations, some weapons that are great for others, like a knife for short range, maybe a spear for long range, or the different types of classes that you choose in an MMO. Some are tanks, some are speedy, fast scouts, and some are assault. So game development, a great game is about balance, giving the player interesting choices and interesting limits that they can be clever about how they make their decisions and shape their experience. And when it comes to shaping their experience, we talk about the narrative, which is a little bit like the story of a game. And since Pac-Man, games have become huge as an industry in terms of billions of dollars of revenue. It's bigger than the movie industry and the music industry combined, because games are art, they're huge, and they're mainstream. I think part of the reason of this is that games have everything. So they have words like a book, music like a song, interesting, exciting images, the stories and the movement and the time of a movie and TV. But they also allow us as players to interact with them. And this is because games are a medium which involves sight, where we see the visuals, we hear the music, the interaction, we touch, we feel the stories, and we feel the emotions, and we feel the satisfaction of moving our joystick or our mouse and keyboard in satisfying patterns. And all of these come together in a way, we can craft these in a way together to build an experience that will engage our player in their heart and also in their mind in an interesting pattern and challenge for them. And narrative design is connecting the words and story of our game with the music of our game to match our visuals and our interaction to create this complete experience for our player. And looking at these two examples here, if we look at Hitman and Just Cause, I chose these because they're both third-person games and they're both kind of shooters in a way, but the way they approach the player experience is very different. So thinking about level design for a moment, Hitman is a game where the mechanics are about being stealthy, being clever, using a very small, detailed level and the AI characters in the level to assassinate your target by maybe poisoning them or tricking them so that a piano falls on them, or maybe even tricking someone else to kill them. So it's like a small but beautifully crafted puzzle sandbox for you to figure out and find different solutions to killing your target. And this matches the mechanics of Hitman, the way the character interacts with the world and the way the character can assassinate the other characters. Looking at another game, which is also a third-person game, the mechanics are completely the opposite. This is all about movement. It's about moving around on foot, in cars, in aircraft, helicopters, on your grappling hook, in your parachute. You've even got a wingsuit here. So you have all of these movement mechanics, and you basically blow up everything in the entire world. And you have, as a result, you have this huge map that complements your movement mechanics and is completely the opposite to Hitman. But they're both very satisfying experiences their own way. And the game designers have crafted their experience, their levels, to match their mechanics. And they've also thought about the beauty of how their levels look to the player. And I think most people would agree that both of these look quite beautiful in their own way. And the designers have used things like light, color, contrast to create emotion in the player. But not only that, in this Hitman level, they're guiding the player to the center of the screen here. The lines of the building guide the player. The lights of the Terminus Hotel guide the player to this interesting destination. And maybe there are one or two interesting things to be seen here in these lit areas here. And the level design guides the player, just as this road is maybe guiding the player towards an interesting settlement, which is just out of sight here on the screen. So level design, again, builds the experience of the player towards the kind of result that we're aiming for. And all of this leads us to think about monetization. As you can see, there's quite a lot of detail in building an experience that can be absolutely wonderful and maybe life-changing, maybe just incredibly fun for your players, for your audience. And if we have a lot of free time and we are creating art, maybe we have a valuable message, we can do this for free, and this is absolutely fine. But of course, many of us have families, we like to pay our mortgage, and so on. So we invest a lot of time in crafting experiences that our players love, and ideally for which are so good that they're happy to pay money for and recommend that their friends also pay money for. So we have other ways of making money from our games, like advertising in our games, becoming a little bit popular, free to play. We can sell our games on Steam or Humble Bundle or the Epic Store, the Epic Game Store, or Good Old Games and such. But also what Juan and Cartoa were talking about earlier, there's also opportunities to build games in the metaverse and on the sandbox. So earning money from this. And this is an entirely new model. This is, we know well, but this is new. And this is the second part of what I'd like to talk to you about today, is the technical skills to do that if you choose to use the sandbox to make experiences. So So far, we've talked about art, but let's talk about the technical skills to do it right now. And in a general sense, game engines save us a lot of time. If we're very skilled, we can sit down, usually with C++, and build our own game engine. But I promise you that the amount of effort in building your own game engine and maintaining it is generally not worth the trouble. The two biggest game engines right now are Unity and Unreal Engine, but there are many, many. And game engines offer us pre-built systems that we can fit together to realize our game vision. Essential things like rendering, which is what you see on the screen, physics, which is the interaction of the different objects in our game, animation, which is making them move nicely, audio, making sounds. And all of these various systems fit together to give us designers a quicker way to create the experience that hopefully our players will love. So Game Maker from the Sandbox is specifically designed to develop game worlds for Sandbox. It is very, very quick to use, as you will see right now. It is the fastest I've ever used. I've used in quite a big way, probably these three here, Unity, Unreal, and CryEngine, 2 or 3. But Game Maker is much faster in some ways. And it's easier. It's not as fully featured, but it is easier. And when we start with Game Maker, we start with the idea of a level, which is essentially a blank canvas for the experience of our game. So we build our level from objects, and we may start with putting in the ground of our level, which is an object. We may drag in a sky, which is another object. Then we drag in a player character, some bushes, trees, and flowers. And you can see that the basic type of the basic building block of a level are objects in the game. And we build our levels up like Lego, one on top of another. We add the floor, ground, walls, doors, players, AI. All of these are objects in our level. And here we can see, here's an AI character. Here we have a lever, a door. And here we're looking at a complete level, but from an unusual angle. So the camera is positioned above the level and we're looking down at it like a football pitch. So, oops, sorry about that. I'm going to play a video for you here. If you'll just please bear with me for one moment while I get it started. This is quite a typical sandbox experience. It would be an example of a well-designed level. And you can see how the static objects and the player is interacting with them. So what you saw there was a well-developed level with both static objects and dynamic objects. And sometimes we want to give objects in the game more interesting behavior. So we can define them as, for example, a player. We can define them as an AI robot or an enemy, or as a door, a lever, a switch. You saw, for example, some moving platforms. You saw lava for the floor that the player jumped over. And we use the object's properties like behaviors and components to get this more dynamic behavior and relationships between the objects in our level. I'm going to play another example for you right now, and I'll talk you through it. So I'm selecting this object in GameMaker, and I'm saying this is a melee enemy. So this is a fighter who will swing his sword at the player, and they will move at medium speed, cause a medium amount of attack damage, and their health is quite strong, so they have quite a high health. And here I'm setting their motion speed. In this example, they will stand still, so they won't patrol. And I'm setting the zone which they will chase at. So I'm making it very small or very large. So when the player comes inside the zone, they will chase them. And this probably takes 5 minutes to set up. And when the enemy dies, when this melee enemy dies, they will be destroyed. So this is their death event. And you can see that this AI took less than 5 minutes to set up. If you're quick, you could probably do it in 2 minutes. So that's kind of the typical setup for an AI enemy in the sandbox game maker. And gameplay mechanics we talked about earlier is based on events, the way different parts of your level, the way the different objects and more advanced objects interact with each other. So you can set up relationships in GameMaker like farmers and crops, where crops will grow and farmers can harvest them. You can have relationships between game objects like prey and predators, where the prey will run away and the predators will chase them. You can open doors using buttons and keys, and you can give different objects in your game health and have them respond to things like injury as well. So it's this interactivity between the different game objects in your level that brings your game to life. And these are kind of the mechanics which are the heart of your game. And I'm going to play another video for you now, which shows the setup of a button or a lever and a gate. So I've clicked on this lever and it's responding to a message, sending a message to open the gate. So if the player interacts with this lever, it will open this gate. So it's message is open gate, and it's saying, and now we have the gate will receive the message, open gate from the lever, and we've connected these two events, the gate and the lever. And there's a third object here, which is a key. We're setting this key to send a trigger to the lever. When the player has it, they'll be able to move the lever to open the gate. So gate, if the key is equipped, the player has the key, gate key equipped, then they'll be able to interact with the lever. The lever will interact with the gate, and it will open it. So again, you see, once you know what you're doing, this takes three minutes to set up. And there you have 3 stages of an interaction between a key, a lever, and a gate. So this is what's, to me, is especially interesting about Game Maker is the simplicity of setting up the different systems, because they're already built for you into it. So things like quests, dialogue, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, jumping, climbing, dancing, emotions, illusion, inventory, all of these systems are ready to go out of the box. And as you've seen from the examples on the videos, you set a few quite simple parameters, and you can add gameplay mechanics to the player's experience. And these types of mechanics allow you to create different kinds of games. So you can make shooters, you can make RPG and action adventures, platformers, running and jumping, and so on. And you can give it different genres and settings. You can set it in the Wild West or the future or anywhere you wish. So with your art style and with the type of game, you have some flexibility within Game Maker to make your vision happen. And the quest system is very, very simple to use. You simply decide the name of your quest, what starts it, and, oops, sorry. You decide the name of your quest, describe it, what starts it, and what finishes it. So a couple of examples here. If you collect, say, a certain number of coins, or you open a certain number of treasure chests, or maybe you're set to assassinate a big boss on the level, which would be an acid death, or destroy something. So you can set what ends the quest once the players have started. And this is just a series of drop downs. You just choose the type of quest, and then you decide what happens when the player completes the quest. So you can end the game or end the level when the player completes the quest. You can start another quest, or you can have nothing happen. So it depends on what your desired experience is. Let me play a video which shows how quick it is to set up. But before I started, you can see that this is our quest dialog here within the rules system. And we have two quests. We have collect silver key and open the door. And so I'll press play on the video for you. So we open rules dialog, and we look at these two quests, and we decide what unlocks the quest. So this quest is collected, so we collect the counter. We need to collect the key. And we send a message when the key is collected. And we're on to the second quest now, which is, sorry, the video's jumped ahead a little bit. But once we've collected the key in the first quest, this triggers the second quest, and the second quest takes place to open the door. So one quest triggers the activity of the second quest. And there again, you have the interactivity between the basic objects in the game, which brings your game some life and allows you to create things like puzzles and the experience for your player. Another system that's ready built for you is dialogue. And I have a video for you for this as well, but basically this is also built on components and behaviors. And we add this to make an object or an AI character in our level say something, and objects to ask questions of the player so they can speak. So objects can speak and ask questions. And we won't go into tags for the moment, but by layering the idea of speech, of an object saying something, and objects asking questions. We create dialogue where we can have back and forth between the objects and the player. So objects can ask questions, they can say things, and the player can answer and respond and make choices to advance their experience in the game. So we can have like a nested structure of these. So I'll play this video for you now. Here we have a beggar who's a speaker, and we have three objects behind the beggar which ask a question, and they're going to ask a series of questions of the player. And it's going to appear to the player that they're interacting with the beggar who's asking them questions, and then at the end, the beggar will give the player a key. So I'm going to hit play. And we're first selecting these objects, which are asker, which have an asker. And now I'm selecting the speaker, which is the beggar. So the beggar is saying something like, "Hello, stranger." And now I'm setting the questions that the beggar will ask using these three objects here. So the first questions are, the beggar will ask through them, what's the problem? How can I help you? And I'm listening. So these are some questions and some choices that the player can make, like who attacked the castle and I destroy the enemy. So the question here is, I can't quite read it, but you hopefully you get the idea. One of the answers is okay. And we're quickly hiding these objects so the player doesn't see them. And it seems like the player is interacting with the speaker, the beggar. The old man, can you help us? The player answers the questions. And when the player answers the questions, the old man gives them the silver key, and the player goes on to the next part of the level. And so connecting with what Juan and Carto were talking about earlier, they were talking about NFTs and Vox Edit and the assets toolbar and the sandbox marketplace. So in GameMaker, the assets toolbar displays all the assets that you can add to your levels and to your games. And as both of them may have mentioned, you can create your own assets using the Vox Edit editor, which you can create cars, characters, doors, gates, the floor, all kinds of objects. And you can give them interactivity, like they can act as switches, buttons, characters, and so on. So you can make them speak, ask questions, send you on quests, open gates and doors, etc. You can make these yourself and add them to your levels and games, but you can also buy them on the marketplace and sell them on the marketplace as NFTs and give them different prices and levels of rarity and all of this, just as we talked about in earlier parts of today's webinar. And once we drag these assets from our asset toolbar into our level, we can move them about and arrange them as we wish, side by side, rotate them. And some shapes we can give different, basic shapes we can give different sizes to. So this is the way that we start from a blank level, drag things from our asset toolbar, move them around, and build up our level by giving our objects interesting behaviors to create the experience that our players will find enjoyable and satisfying. So that kind of concludes what I wanted to talk about today in terms of both the artistic skills of game developers, but also what's involved on the technical side, and kind of showing you in a very quick way how easy it is to get something up and running in Sandbox Game Maker and build a level and give your level interaction. So at this point, I'm going to close this. I'm going to open the floor to questions, and hopefully I can respond to what you type in the YouTube page in your text box. So I'll open the floor to you, and I'll try to do my best to answer any questions that you may have on art and Sandbox Game Maker. So I'm looking through YouTube right now. I'm just looking to find some questions for you that you have. Joe Tyax has a question. Could you suggest good tutorials for Sandbox Game Maker? That is an excellent question. There are a bunch of places you can look. There's a ton of stuff online available on YouTube and various other places. And of course, Sandbox has its own documentation as well. Also, I'll be talking about, after our Q&A, we're running a game development course at Polygon Games. So we'll be touching on Sandbox Game Maker as well. So we'll be talking through some of the Game Maker technology. So there is lots of ways to find out how to use Game Maker and how to make your games pretty interesting and maybe really, really interesting. So, Joe, I hope that answers your question. Joe, as another question of yours, does Sandbox support VR? I think that is an extraordinarily good question. I love this question because it's really thinking ahead. And I would actually really like to know the answer to this myself. I haven't seen anything about the Sandbox supporting VR, but I can see this happening because I can see a fit between what Sandbox does and where VR is going in terms of VR, virtual reality, mixed reality, augmented reality. There's absolutely a ton of opportunity with that. So that one I can't answer well myself, but it's a terrific question. I'm looking for some more. So Joe has another question. What motivates people to play my games? Excellent question. I think what we're looking at in terms of Sandbox is people who are at the more towards the cutting edge of gameplay and game development. So the studios and players that are putting together all the pieces that we spoke about today in terms of metaverse, crypto, NFTs, building games, player experiences, all of that. The experiences that we see on the Sandbox, they aren't AAA yet. This is something that we can build satisfying games for sure. We can build satisfying educational experiences, but they're not AAA at the moment. But this is part of the challenge for a game developer, is to make something with the tools that are available. And I think we've seen from Juan's talk today, I saw some titles that really I thought looked interesting and different and fresh, and were clever ways to use their existing technology. And I think that those are the kind of projects that the Sandbox can be really successful at. And it also helps you position yourself for the future. So, Joe, I hope that answers your question. Does anyone have any more questions and thoughts? Okay, I think we've covered all the questions. So I would like to say, just as I mentioned earlier, we have put together a 2-month game development course for metaverse co-creators. So people who are interested in becoming kind of future game designers in the metaverse. And we're looking at, just as I spoke of today, we're looking at the art of game design, which is making your experience good and beautiful and interesting and maybe scary, maybe fun, maybe puzzling, but also the technical, which is the back end of how to build a game in the sandbox game maker. So putting together these two, we're going to be meeting online about once a week, and you'll have the courses available to view and documents for download, and you'll have interaction with your instructors, and I will be running the course as your trainer. So that's about a 2 months experience. And if you'd like to learn more about that, you can go to polygon.games, and you can certainly sign up and view to see what's involved with that and see if this is the kind of thing that would be interesting and relevant to you. And leading on from this, I would like to say a big thank you to Juan and sadly Clement from the Sandbox. He couldn't be with us today, but Juan joined us and gave us a really interesting view on what Sandbox can do, and typical Sandbox experiences, and showed the ways that you can stretch Game Maker as a game designer. And also for the very detailed and useful information that Kartoa gave us on the breadth of the metaverse, of crypto, of blockchain, and how we can apply it as game developers. And I'd like to thank you for your time today in joining us. And sincerely, we hope you found it useful and entertaining. And we're wishing you the very best for the rest of your day. So we'll sign off here. And thank you very much.